Vladimir Putin has announced Russia is coming out with some hypersonic missiles. Those are missiles that can travel 5 times faster than the speed of sound. Wow, that's fast. He also announced some nuclear-powered underwater drones and some other crazy weaponry. Before I give you my analysis on this, I would just ask that if you like this video, please hit the like button as well as the subscribe button. Thanks. All right, so Vladimir Putin says he's got some funky weaponry and that the U.S. Military does not have the capability to defensively counteract like a weapon like a hypersonic missile. And those hypersonic missiles would have nuclear warheads, so we wouldn't be able to shoot them out of the sky with current technology. Russia's, they make a lot of weaponry and it's pretty formidable stuff. I would say, though, that some of this is probably psychological warfare in nature. If you look at the former Soviet Union, they were always exaggerating their capabilities. There's one famous situation, I think it was under Khrushchev, possibly Stalin, but I'm thinking Khrushchev. But anyway, when they had these military parades back in the day, the former Soviet Union, they would have the Soviet aircraft would fly overhead, and it would just seem to go on forever and ever. So the U.S. Military strategists would watch these videos, and they would go, "Oh my gosh, look at this Air Force that the Soviet Union has." And what I think, like I said, I think it might have been Khrushchev. What they would do is they would just fly overhead. Then when they got out of sight, they would turn around and fly over again, and they would just go round and round in circles. So they didn't have that many aircraft, but because they were flying over and over and over again, it looked like they had an endless supply of military aircraft. And once the Soviet Union collapsed, we found out that the military capabilities of the former Soviet Union were exaggerated, and they really weren't that much of a threat to us. I mean, they did have nuclear weapons. It was the Cuban Missile Crisis. But the U.S. Military capabilities were much greater. The problem was that the military-industrial complex took advantage of this arms race, and they really spent a lot of money and wealth and resources that could have been used to build up the American economy, raise up the middle class, and really turn America into an amazing, fantastic country. Well, most of that money went to the military-industrial complex. A good chunk of each dollar generated. It was a terrible waste of money. They were really never a threat to us. You could argue, yes, they occupied Poland, East Germany, their side of the Iron Curtain. And I think through détente, we could have accomplished a lot, but they were not a threat to the U.S. And it was a total waste of money in retrospect. And Eisenhower warned us. President Eisenhower, in his farewell address, he warned us of the dangers of a runaway, rampant, unregulated military-industrial complex. And today we see the fruit of that. We are invading countries all over the world. They're going to cut your Medicare, your Social Security, unemployment benefits, everything that was created under the social contract from, starting with Roosevelt, that went through the middle-class miracle of 1945 to 1965, what really gave people a high standard of living, where one man could work. This was a single family income. He'd go to work, his wife would stay home, watch the kids, he would have his own home, a car, take vacation days, work 8 hours a day, have health benefits, and have a decent life. And they took that away, they stole that, and that large chunk of that theft went into the military-industrial complex. And now, because of these announcements, and which, I'm not saying they don't have the weapon or they're not going to have it, but the military-industrial complex, like they did in the late 40s, early 50s, 60s, they're going to take this, what Putin's saying, and they are going to just use it as an excuse to put more trillions and trillions and trillions more into this military-industrial quagmire. They'll build another $1 trillion aircraft carrier. Well, what good is a giant aircraft carrier if he has a nuclear-powered underwater drone? One little small warhead that has nuclear capabilities can blow that thing out of the water. It's insanity. Now, I'm not going to say Putin is an angel. He is definitely an authoritarian. I've talked to Russians. There's a lot of Russians in the United States, or New York City. So, I get to talk to them. Most Russians you meet are pretty politically knowledgeable. Yeah, they may have different views, but they keep abreast of politics. And this Putin, a lot of people don't know, he was, when the Soviet Union was collapsing, he was with the KGB. He was also an assistant to Boris Yeltsin. And when the US bankers came in there and looted, they destroyed the economy in Russia. And it was already collapsing, and they came in and they divided up all the industries and gave them to the oligarchs for a fee, and their cut. But Putin was on the inside, and because he was in the KGB, because he was also dealing with the US bankers, he was also connected to Yeltsin. A lot of the guys who had stolen vast resources of, factories, companies, money, they put it under Putin's charge. He kind of created like a KGB bank of sorts. And what happened was, when the crisis lifted, they say, "Can we have our money back?" The gangster that Putin was, he's like, "Fuck you, I'm keeping this shit." And he was like, "Fuck you, all you bitches." And that's what happened. So he became a very, very wealthy man after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And the guy is like hardcore, no doubt. He's very intelligent, very hardcore, 100% gangster. But, so that's a negative part. And so, but he has some positive aspects too. And I also run into Ukrainians here. There's a lot of Ukrainians in New York. Yes, I do want a independent Ukraine. The people that the U.S. is supporting are fascistic, but I know the Ukrainians and historically have been fucked over a lot by the Russians, the Soviet Russia. They killed millions of Ukrainians in the Holodomor. So I'm aware of that. I do believe in an equitable and fair and free Ukraine where ethnic Russians are protected as well, who live there and have rights, and the prosperous Ukraine. I have to add that. I always get comments from Ukrainians. But Ukrainians are good, good people. Russians are good people. People are people. They are fucked up by the ruling elites. People just want to live a good, prosperous, healthy, happy life. And the ruling elites always fuck that up. All right, so getting back to Russia. So, I would not want to live under Putin's authoritarian Russia. But to Putin's credit, he did fight ISIS in Syria. ISIS supported by the U.S., CIA, Saudi, Wahhabi, Royal, and Mossad, Israeli axis of evil. That's who was pumping ISIS up. And to Putin's credit, he did fight them. So we have to give him credit for that. Also, he's under, Russia, fairness to Russia. Russia is surrounded by NATO and U.S. forces. We have troops and NATO forces all on their border, missiles pointed at them. Could you imagine if they lined up missile batteries along the Mexican and Canadian borders, how freaked out we would all be? Put yourself in the Russians' position. We are the aggressors. And could you imagine if Russia was invading all the countries on the planet, Iraq, Libya, Syria, through our proxy, Wahhabi Saudi army in Yemen, destroyed Libya? What country does that? That's Nazi Germany. So we are not committing a fraction of internationally the war crimes that Russia, whatever Russia's done, it pales in comparison. We need to think about that. Also, Obama chased the the brand Obama, the face, the mask, the smiley face mask for Wall Street and the military-industrial complex and the surveillance state. When he went after Edward Snowden, Putin took him in. He gave him sanctuary. You got to give Putin credit for that. And Russia. So, and as I spoke of earlier, we could have been friends with Russia. Their Soviet Union collapsed. What do? We built up NATO more. We came in and our bankers, Citigroup, Goldman Sachs went in there and destroyed, looted all their industries, all the stuff that was nationalized. They gave it to the oligarchs for a big cut. We destroyed their pensions. When I say we, I mean the bankers that run our former republic as well. Evil bankers are a huge part of the problem of this planet. We need to change the economic system. I want a productivity of value, not one based on debt, usury, and slavery, like the Federal Reserve mafia casino imposes on us. And so anyway, okay, getting back to Russia. So, you know, this is crazy, and let me finally add, you know, Russia rigged the election bullshit. Hillary Clinton was caught. WikiLeaks totally released the documents. Donna Brazile, the head of the DNC, admitted it. They rigged the Democratic primary against Bernie Sanders. They were caught red-handed, hand in the cookie jar, and in a brilliant Edward Bernays PR spin, they turned around and they were like, oh, Russia rigged the election. These Hillary Clinton corporate Democrats are the scum of the planet. They are vile. This whole DNC is a farce, and their whole trying to bring back McCarthyism, these so-called liberals, bringing back McCarthyism, red baiting. The only place you could actually see people like Chris Hedges, Lee Camp, Jesse Ventura is on the Russian RT network. You can't see these people on any of these US corporate media outlets. So I give Russia credit for that. And this whole fighting Russia thing is insane. I meet Russian people all the time. In the 70s, we collaborated with Russia on the space station. Russia produced some brilliant scientists, physicists. We should say, you know what? If we ever got a republic back, overthrew these corporatist globalist devils who run this show now. But if we ever had a democratic republic, you know, wouldn't make more sense to say, hey, why are we fighting, guys? Russia, we'd have nothing against you. You never did anything to us. Why don't we collaborate? Why don't we use our scientists? Why don't we develop an energy source, you know, from the sun? I know Russia makes a lot of money off natural gas and oil. They might be opposed. We would have to show them the benefits. But at the very least, hey guys, why don't we work on a joint venture to colonize the moon, colonize Mars? Russia has a very advanced space program. Why don't we work with them? Say, hey guys, you know, we're tearing up the planet, we're destroying the planet, mining for all these minerals. Why don't we land a probe, and why don't we actually land a ship on a asteroid? There is tons of gold and diamonds and platinum and all the minerals that we're digging up and destroying the planet for. They're plentiful out in space. Japan landed a probe on one of these asteroids. We have the technology to do it. Instead of building up all these these destroyers that are worthless in a real situation against an opponent like Russia, and are eating up all our benefits and are forcing us to live under austerity, why don't we become friends with the Russians? That would make sense. But these globalists, these cockroaches that pull the strings, no, they're not going to let it happen. And when I say, you know, Russia, why not China too? I'm sure they would be open to suggestion. You know, we need to change the paradigm. We need to move towards a Kardashev Type I civilization, clean up the oceans, unlimited renewable energies, stop the wars, space colonization, post-scarcity society. We have the technology now to do all of this. The ocean should be full of whales and dolphins. The streams of America should be free of all these pesticides, Koch brothers fossil fuel chemical deposit residual toxins. We should have salmon jumping through the streams, you know? But instead, it's a toxic wasteland. It's Flint, Michigan, and we are collapsing. And this, just like the Soviet Union, why do you think they went bankrupt? Why do you think they collapsed? War in Afghanistan, you know, the corruption. We're gonna collapse too. You know, so wake the fuck up, man. And if you're already awoke, start waking up other people. That's how it starts. Consciousness revolution. It's all in the mind. This is a war of the mind. Free the mind and the rest will follow. That's my cliche for today. All right, so for those of you who want more info, please go to www.demsolib.com, Twitter, Instagram, @demsolib. Thanks for listening.